Morning, second grade. Welcome back to our third lesson together for Wit and Wisdom this week. I'm so proud of all of you that you are doing so well in this new learning adventure. Each day that we practice together, the better that we will become. Let's get started today right away. A few things that I want you to remember when we are working together. You will need to gather your materials. The first thing you will need to have is a quiet space for you to be able to concentrate. You will need a paper or notebook and a pencil, a folder or a place to keep your work. You should have already identified this supply the other day, so you need to just get that back out so you'll have it ready to go today. You will need a learning partner to help you work with technology and be able to discuss your work as you move through the lesson. If you do not have these supplies already, please pause your video for just a moment and get any of these supplies out that you need to begin the lesson. As not only do we need our supplies, but we also need to have our brain ready to learn. So before we start, take a deep breath. Be ready to think. Share your ideas with your learning partner. Try and stay focused and look forward to our learning together today. By the end of our class, I really want all of you to be able to answer these questions. What is the important message that's in the photograph? We are going to continue to speak about the photograph with the people marching from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. I want you to be able to write a sentence using correct capitalization, punctuation, and spacing. Be able to tell me, how does a tableau work and how does it help us learn? And be able to practice reading a passage fluently with expression. You're going to practice your Martin Luther King speech again today with your learning partner. By the end of this week, you will be able to answer this big question. Our essential question is, how will we learn together virtually? Well, we have already learned a few things virtually. Let's see if we can remember them. We were able to find a space to work quietly. We've been able to gather materials for all of our lessons. You learned how you will talk to your reading partner as we move through our lesson. You've been able to record your answer in your journal or on your paper. And you've also learned how to use the electronic assessment at the end of each lesson. What new things do you think we will learn today? Let's find out. In today's portion of the lesson, we're going to looking at how to distill the photograph. So that means we are going to take a step back out from the photo. Yesterday, we leaned in close to see the space, the different shapes and the sizes of the pieces of people and clouds and the different aspects of our photograph and how the light and dark helped us learn the mood and the meaning of the photograph. Today in Distill, we take a step back and we look at the overall meaning that this artist wanted us to learn from this photograph. Let's watch a short video to help us learn a little bit more about the meaning of this video. Okay. Let's just start here. Start at, I don't need to start at the very beginning. I want us to start right.
Part one of this lesson.
Let me take that back a little bit further. There we go. Now we're ready to watch the video. I'll be right here when we're done.
New way of learning and thinking, and we're going to stop and think about what we're learning by doing a tableau. A tableau is when you get into a pose to create a scene. You will stand up and pretend you're part of the photograph we've been studying. As you know, each of the 5 content stages has a content framing question that guides our learning. Today, we will work through the 4th content stage, Distill. The content framing question for our learning in this Distill lesson is, what is the important message in this photograph? In Reveal, our last lesson, we zoomed out to look closely at the photograph. But in Distill, we're going to zoom out. I'm sorry, I think I said in Zoom that, or in Reveal that we zoomed out, but actually in Reveal we zoomed in to look closely at the photograph. However, in Distill, we're going to zoom back out and we'll think about the big ideas we can take away from the photograph. Before we begin, let's review. Look again at the photograph on your screen. What do you remember about this photograph? You might have remembered that this photograph was taken by James Crawley. Or maybe you remembered that it shows the voting rights march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. Maybe you remembered that the march lasted 5 days and spanned about 54 miles. You might remember something about the size of the shapes, or about light and darkness and how that made us feel. Let's talk more about what's important in this photograph. Something that's important could be serious, or something important could also be powerful. What do you think are the most important parts of this photograph? How can you tell? Tell your learning partner what you think are the most important parts and why you think that. Please pause the video and share with your learning partner.
If you are sharing with your learning partner your most important parts of this photograph, you might want to think about framing your sentence as you will write it at the end of our lesson. So a good sentence frame that you might want to start out with might be something like, the most important part of this photograph is, I know this because, and tell me your reasons. So that means you're going to need to come up with 2 sentences to explain this photograph.
I wish I could hear what you were talking about with your learning partner. Maybe you talked about how the American flag is important because it's right in the middle of the photograph. Or maybe you talked about how the people are important because they go from one end of the photo to the other. Or maybe you talked about something else that's important too. Now you get a chance to pretend that you're a part of this march. Stand up and pose like one of the marchers in the photograph. Once you've gotten into position, stand very still and don't talk. Pretend like you are frozen in place. Okay, now you can move again. How did it feel to pretend to be one of the marchers? Tell your learning partner.
With your video paused to tell your learning partner, I want you to think about the tableau and what it means. A tableau is meant to help us understand the meaning or the mood of a photo or a setting in a story. So think about what mood that these marchers were feeling as they walked such a long way to protest the right to vote. Pause your video and discuss with your learning partner this idea for just a moment.
Maybe you talked about how it felt to be part of a team. Maybe you felt nervous or determined. Maybe you talked about something different, and that is absolutely okay. Now that we've talked about the important parts in this photograph, let's go back to the question from the beginning of the lesson. What's the important message or big idea in this photograph? I'm going to ask that you pause the video and talk to your partner about the important message.
Remember, when you're practicing your sentences with your partner, you might want to frame your answer something like this. I know the most important message in the photograph is this. I know because, and give me your answer. This will help you be able to write your answer in complete sentences later in the lesson.
Remember how I said that people have studied or examined this painting or this portrait, not portrait, sorry, this photograph in different ways? Here are some responses from other students. One student thought the important message is that people can be powerful when they work together as a team. Another student said the important message is that working together can help people feel brave, even when things look scary. And finally, one second grade friend shared the important message is don't ever stop, no matter what. I wonder what you thought. If you want to look at this picture again, or this photograph again, or show it to someone else in your family, you can find it here. Just to remind you that today we practiced the fourth content stage, which is distill. In our next content stage lesson, we'll go to the final stage, know, and think about what we've learned in this virtual welcome module. Be sure to have all your notes with you for that lesson. They will be really helpful at the know stage. In the next part of this lesson, part 2, we're going to think more about using correct capitalization, spacing, and punctuation. I'm going to ask that you stand up, take a break, make sure you have all of your writing tools, and join me back for part 2. See you in a minute.
Okay. We will go back and finish the writing portion of our lesson shortly. In the meantime, I would like for us to take a little brain break. So you know my love of Mr. Catman. This week our theme is for brain breaks is Mr. Catman. So today I have another brain break with Mr. Catman. So join me in standing up and stretching out your arms and be ready to write in the next portion of our lesson.
Brain-a-size with Mr. Catman. Shoulder rock and roll. Mr. Catman is doing his robot dancing. Slick.
This is a good pastime when you're
Roll
home
your
with not
shoulders
much to do.
forward like Mr. Catman. Next, roll your shoulders backward. Now let's combine the two. Roll one shoulder forward and roll the other shoulder backward at the same time.
This is tricky.
You got it? Roll one shoulder forward and the other shoulder
I feel like
backward
my arms
at
will
the
be very
same
loose and ready
time.
to write when this is over.
Awesome. Now switch sides. Roll your opposite shoulder forward and the other shoulder backward.
Time
If
to
you
do it at
can't
the
get
same
it,
time.
no need to have a cat-a-doodle.
Are you feeling loose and ready to write?
Practice makes perfect. For real.
Oh, for real. All right. Practice with your writing will also help make perfect. We will practice lots of writing over the next few weeks together, learning virtually. So if you remember the other day, I asked you to think about a time that you had to practice something very well and how to do it. And then you were getting better at your practice and you were ready to play a game. So now I want you to think about the time that you had to now show someone how well that you could do whatever it was that you practiced. A good example might be when I was a kid, I remember taking piano lessons and practicing and practicing and practicing. And eventually, I had to perform in a piano recital. So then I had to get up in front of everyone and show them how well I had practiced my piano that I could perform the song in front of them. Writing is much like that. We have got to practice and practice and practice because guess what? In my piano recital, I still think I remember hitting a few wrong notes in there. So I needed to practice even more when I thought I was done. Writing will also require us to continue practicing mostly with that throughout our entire lives before we can get really, really good at it. Let's see what they want us to learn with our writing today. You're going to still be looking at this same photograph, but today we're going to practice writing the meaning of the photograph. Here is our video to help guide us through our writing exercise. I want to start at about 2 minutes. Go, I think, right about there. All right.
Here is today's craft question. We're going to work on using correct capitalization, spacing, and punctuation as we write about the important parts in the photograph we've been learning about. You're going to get a chance to write on your own today. Tell your partner some reasons why you should use correct capitalization, spacing, and punctuation. Maybe you said, it's easier to read each word. Maybe you said, I can see where one sentence ends and the next sentence starts. Or maybe you came up with another reason why we should use correct capitalization, spacing, and punctuation. In the last lesson, we looked at some sentences that describe the photograph. Point to the sentence that has a yellow highlight over correct punctuation. Did you select this one? Great work. That is the correct punctuation. Point to the sentence that has the yellow highlight over the capital letter at the beginning of a sentence. Since we're working and we're looking at the highlighted one, this is the correct answer. However, if you said this also has a capital and this also has a capital and it's all correct capitalization, great work. Finally, point to the sentence that has spaces between the words. And you'll want to find the ones that have the highlighted spaces. That is right here at the bottom. Did you notice that there is one space that we forgot to highlight? Can you point to where that would be? If you said right here, you're correct. Great work, team. Now that you've shown that you know what correct capitalization, spacing, and punctuation look like, it's time for you to give it a try. You get to write about the most important parts of this photograph. How could you describe the most important parts? Share with your learning partner. What we're going to ask you to do is, on your own, we want to make sure to try that you write on your own first, and your learning partner can help check your writing when you're done. Write about the most important parts of this photograph. Use correct capitalization, spacing, and punctuation. I'm going to put it up big for you. Oops, sorry. And I want you to pause the video and take as long as you need to start writing. When you are done writing, hit play and continue with the video. Learning partners, this message is for you. Let your student try to spell as best they can. Encourage them to spell the words they may know how to spell based on the sound spelling patterns they've learned. However, you can also help them spell words they haven't learned yet.
Scholars, if you have discovered some of the important parts of this photograph that you have recognized, I would like for you, if you are stuck at where to start with your writing, I would like for you to use a sentence frame similar to what we talked about earlier when we said, I noticed the most important parts of this photograph are, and explain the photographs. I know this because, and give me your reasons. That sentence frame should help get you started with filling in some of your ideas. Your learning partner can pause the video and you can take as much time as you need to write.
How did you do? Here's a checklist. This checklist is for you to use. I use capital letters at the beginning of sentences. I use spacing between words, and I used end punctuation. If your sentence starts with a capital letter, give yourself a few snaps. Look at the spacing between your words. If you can spot the spaces, give yourself a high five. If you have used a punctuation mark at the end of your sentence, if you have, take a quick bow. Be sure to share your writing with your learning partner too. You may also want to share your writing with other people, friends or family. We have now completed the third craft stage using correct capitalization, spacing, and punctuation in your own writing. In our next lesson, the last of our welcome module, we will work through the last craft stages. In the Excel stage, we will take a look at what we wrote to see how we can improve it.
All right, scholars, I can't wait to be able to see some of your great writing that you will fill out in your exit tickets today. The very last part of our lesson for this third day of our week is practicing our fluency. If we want to get really good at reading our fluency, we need to practice it over and over again. If you remember yesterday, I explained that this was part of this speech from the Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. So a speech is not just simply reading a book to yourself. A speech is when you have a prepared statement and you are going to stand up in front of people and read it out loud in order to convey to them your mood and motivate them to some sort of action that you are requesting of them. So when you stand up today to practice this passage, reading it to your reading partner, I want you to think about those few things. So the most important parts of the things I want you to tell your partner today, see if you can remember them. What are the most important parts when you are reading out loud? You may have said that it was your speed or pacing how fast or slow you are reading. You may have explained to them that your expression, so how your voice rises or falls, is an important part. You may also have explained to them that your fluency is important. The fact that you can read all of the words correctly. All of those things will help convey a mood of your reading to the person listening to you. You can pause the video here and take a couple moments to read this passage to your reading partner. Last but not least, I'd like us to reflect on some of the things we learned today. Once you have completed the exit ticket, you should feel confident that you can answer all of these questions that we talked about today. Examine the shapes and color of a photograph to understand its meaning. Can you identify the capitalization, punctuation, spacing errors in a sentence? Can you write about the meaning of this photograph? And finally, are you getting better at reading this passage fluently with expression? These are all things that you should be able to explain or answer on your exit ticket today. If you or your learning partner have any questions for me or need my help with anything in the lesson, please do not hesitate to call me. I'm here all the time. I'm checking my email a lot. I'm on it all throughout the day so that if you email me, I should be able to respond to you very quickly. I am happy to respond by phone call, by email, or we can set up a video meeting, whichever will work best to answer your needs or questions. Your final steps for this lesson: go on and complete the exit Google survey. That's how I will know that you completed your lesson today. There's just a few short questions. It won't take but a couple of moments. You will be able to just fill in the blanks with some of your writing today. Stand up and take a bow. All of you scholars are so awesome and being so brave in completing all of these lessons. I'm very proud of you. Make sure you turn to your learning partner and tell them thank you for helping you with all of this learning. This is a new adventure for all of us. And lastly, find something that you would like to read today for 20 minutes. You don't have to do it right now, but sometime today. Maybe that's before bedtime or when you first wake up in the morning or at nap time in the afternoon. But find something that you would like to read and practice reading for 20 minutes. That is the end of our lesson for today. I will see you again tomorrow. Nice job, second grade. Have a good afternoon.